Okay, who is your favorite superhero? My name is Casey, and my favorite superhero is Batman. We might not be able to agree on our favorite superhero or who is better, Marvel or DC, but one thing is certain, people love superheroes. In fact, superhero movies are some of the largest grossing movies every year. And if you're with your group right now, I'd love for you to pause the video, talk a little bit about who your favorite superhero or favorite superhero movie is. I think people love a good hero because of what they do. They solve a problem, they fight the bad guys, they are brave, and they can do some crazy cool stuff. Basically, they see something wrong in the world and they go and do something about it in the most epic way possible. Maybe we love superhero movies because we all love the idea of superheroes existing in our real world. There are times in life where we wish someone would just do something to help us out, make things change for the better, to solve problems, and to at least do something about it. Over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about some of these areas in life where we all wish someone would just do something. The things in the world that aren't quite right and that they seem unfair. The stuff that we would call injustice. With your group, I want you to take a second and talk about what comes to mind when you hear that word injustice. Injustice is the opposite of justice. Justice simply means something is right, it's fair, it's equal. And so when we talk about injustice, we're talking about all of the things in our world that are not right, not fair, or unequal. But you didn't actually need me to define it, did you? No, for most of us, something came to mind the minute you heard the word injustice. Maybe it was something big and global like racism, human trafficking, global poverty, or world hunger. Maybe it was something more local that seems so unfair and it's right around the corner. Maybe you're experiencing a kind of injustice personally and you know the pain all too deeply. When we see injustice, it makes us ask some hard questions. It makes us wonder how others don't see it or how we didn't see it before. For some of us, it's not that we don't care about injustice, but we just don't do anything about it because we don't get close enough to see what's really happening and ask the hard questions. But guess what? We aren't the first people to have this problem. In fact, Jesus made a habit out of pointing out a lot of things that people hadn't seemed to see before. And so let's take a look at one of the examples today. Lots of people wanted to know who is in good standing with Jesus, who's on the right side and who's on the wrong side. And so Jesus told them that one day when he is seated on his heavenly throne, he will separate people into two groups. The first group, he will say, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me." Matthew 25:34-36. Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes or clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go and visit you?" Matthew 25:37-39. And then Jesus will say, "Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you have done for me." Matthew 25:40. Basically, Jesus is saying that when you do something for the undeserved or the oppressed, you are essentially doing it for him. And those of us who call ourselves followers of Jesus, we are expected to do something about the injustices that we see. And to the second group, Jesus will say, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison and you did not look after me." Matthew 25:41-43. They also will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and did not help you?" He will reply, "Truly, I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Matthew 25:45. In the story, Jesus distinguishes between the two groups and by how they responded to the needs of the least of these, the prisoners, the hungry, the sick, the strangers, the people who need the most help, feel the most pain, or get the worst treatment. The first group in the story is those of us who follow Jesus. As we follow Jesus, our faith in him will lead us to serve, to do something for the marginalized, for the oppressed. Now, when Jesus is telling the story, he's not saying he was physically hungry or thirsty, but he's essentially saying that he takes personally the way that we treat others, especially those who face injustice. Jesus is very clear that his people need to see and act when it comes to injustice. And as you get to know him more, you'll see that Jesus always cares about injustice. He always speaks up for others, and he always fights for what is right. And as you follow him, you'll begin to care about the things he cares about. You'll begin to see injustice differently than you did before, and you'll be compelled to do something about it. But before you do something about it, you have to see it. We need to be able to look around and see what's happening in the world around us. We need to be able to notice the injustices in our daily, ordinary world. To help us see injustice, we need to spend time with people who are different than us. And this doesn't always come naturally, really, to any of us. But in order to see what's going on in the world, you have to get to know the people in your world, not just in your circle. When we start discovering what's happening in our world, in the world around us, in our communities, and in the lives of people who are different from us, then we begin to be closer to the injustice around us. We also need to be curious enough to listen to the people experiencing the injustice and try to learn. Try to imagine yourself in their shoes. It might be an uncomfortable experience for you, but in this case, discomfort isn't necessarily bad. It is actually a good sign when bad things make you uncomfortable. It means you're beginning to see things the way God sees them. So keep listening, try to learn, and when you hear about injustice, be curious, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable. When we see injustice around us or even in us, let's be courageous enough to call it what it is. Identifying and acknowledging injustice, it takes away some of its power. And this may be the hardest part for you. It's risky, it's awkward, it's uncomfortable, but it's important because once we name injustice, we also feel ownership and the responsibility to actually do something about it. So much of following Jesus is learning to see, think, and live in a way that is not natural to us. One of the things that I love about this generation, your generation, is that so many of you actually see and care about injustice. You can be the generation to do something in so many areas where it seemed so impossible for so long. But the first step to do something is to see it and to help others see it too. That's why we have groups where we can talk about real difficult things and help each other with these things that maybe we haven't seen before. And so as you discuss this with your group, remember, before you do something about injustice, you have to see it.